Oh, hi there. It's me, your best friend and your secret lover, Teaspoon, and I'm alive. I know that many of you have been asking me that because I haven't posted anything in a while, but 2025 has been kind of crazy for me, and I want to tell you all about it, get you up to speed of what's been going on with me, and let you know where the videos have been. So there's been sort of three main issues as to why I haven't been posting. For starters, both my physical and mental health, which I'll get into shortly. There's also been a lot of computer problems. This has honestly been the main thing that I've been dealing with for a while now, and hopefully that's passed, but I'll tell you all about that as well. And then I've just been sort of busy traveling and trying to do some of my own personal stuff. So yeah, I'm going to tell you about all three of those things right now. But first, you may notice that this is actually on my second channel. I made a second channel for stuff like this, where I want to talk about stuff that isn't a main series video, or maybe if I want to play other games or anything like that. So if you want to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out videos on here as well, that'd be cool. Okay, let's talk. I don't really know the best way to structure this video. I'm going to be going back all the way basically to the beginning of this year and trying to go in chronological order, but I have a bad memory, so we'll see how that goes. But for starters, right at the beginning of the year, I started it off already sick. I actually got sick around Christmas time with what I believe was something COVID related. I never actually took any tests or anything, but I got really sick for a couple weeks there. I remember because I was doing aerial fishing and basically just trying to force myself to stay awake for as long as possible. But while being sick and while trying to do aerial fishing, you can imagine how that went. But I do very vividly remember that. And then pretty soon after that, maybe a month later, I actually injured my back. And it was really annoying because I didn't really do anything specific to it. I woke up one day and just had some of the worst back pain I've ever had. I couldn't even get out of bed or do anything for the first few days. And for about 2 weeks, I was just sort of suffering in pain, trying my best to get as much done at my computer as I could, but even sitting for longer than 30 minutes to an hour at a time was really painful. So I very vividly remember that. I was killing some Leviathan at the time and just trying to force myself to stay at my computer as long as possible, but I'd end up doing just like 1 or 2 trips and then have to go and lie down again. So that's how I started my year. But that brings me to my first specific story I have to tell you guys, which I'm going to refer to as the attack of the chair. During this time, I remember I sort of slumped back into my chair. Because my back was sore, I didn't really want to bend my knees to get into my chair, so I was just sort of allowing myself to fall. And my chair at the time was already pretty old. It was about 9 years old, and it was on its last legs anyway. But as I slumped down into my chair, the bottom of it just completely snapped. Where the hydraulic system sits in the wheel well, there's sort of a metal bracket with a bearing in it. And I just completely snapped the metal bracket, completely broke the bearing, and the hydraulic system of the chair was on the ground, and that's what was actually supporting my weight at the time, and sort of using the other 2 wheels, whatever 2 wheels were in contact with the ground to balance, as I was sort of on this very precarious pole that I was basically balancing all my weight on. And at the time, I didn't really realize what I had done until I got up and looked, and very clearly saw that my chair was completely broken. Now, something you need to know about me is I really don't like spending money. I know this is kind of the opposite problem that most people have, but it sort of physically hurts me when I have to spend a lot of money. I like saving money. I don't like buying frivolous things. I don't really buy anything that I don't desperately need. But at this point, I kind of had to admit to myself that it was time to buy a new chair. So I went online, I did some research, ended up buying a Secret Labs chair. I might put a picture of it here if I remember. And I realized that now I had about a week to kill before my new chair got there. And sitting in this chair, sort of balancing on 1 pole and 2 wheels at a time was not going to do it. So I ended up asking my sister, who happened to have a spare chair that she said I could borrow for the time being. So she brought the chair over to my house and was going to help me remove my old chair. Because my back was so sore at the time, I really couldn't lift heavy things, and so we were both sort of lifting half of it. I had the half up by the headrest, and she had, admittedly, the heavier half over by the mechanism underneath the chair. And whatever she was holding on to, I will remind you that this chair was very old and had a lot of things falling off of it. Ended up snapping, and if you thought the reason this was called Attack of the Chair was because it attacked me, you're going to be mistaken on that one, because as the lever snapped that she was holding onto, it sort of swung down onto her foot, and that little metal rod that I was saying that I was supporting all of my weight on sort of gashed into the top of her foot and basically just sliced the top of it open from sort of the middle of it to down to her, between her big toe and her middle toe, and just cut right through her foot. Now, at first, I didn't know this. I just thought she had sort of dropped it because she had stumbled or something. And I'd sort of asked her, like, are you okay? Or like, what happened there? And she very calmly said to me, no, I think I need to go to the emergency room. To which I said, oh, why? And I looked down and her foot was just bleeding all over my carpet, which is fine. I don't blame her for that. But we immediately went over to the emergency room. Unfortunately, the emergency room here is not very emergency unless you are having a life-threatening emergency. So it ended up taking about 5.5, maybe 6 hours for her to see a doctor and get her foot stitched up. I don't know if I can put a picture of it here because YouTube doesn't like blood. But if I can, I'm gonna warn you before I do it, but it'll be right here if I figure out I can do it. Anyway, it ended up being pretty okay. She ended up with 8 stitches in the top of her foot, which at this point have healed really well. There's no permanent damage at all except for a small scar. And even at the time, she was able to still play in her softball tournament the next day. So yeah, all things considered, it could have been a lot worse, and it ended up fine. So the next thing I want to talk about is my computer issues. And this is honestly the majority of the reason that I wasn't actually able to make much content recently. I have had a lot of computer issues that I don't even know where to begin, but we're going to try. So starting at the end of 2024 sometime, my computer had started having some problems. It would crash randomly and then also not boot up properly after it crashed. And I really didn't know what the problem was. It didn't seem like it was connected to anything that I was doing at the time of the crashes. It didn't seem like it had any correlation to me downloading anything, installing anything, like when it started or anything like that. And the real problem was I had so many different error messages, both on the crash and when trying to boot, that it was really hard to actually pinpoint the problem because each error message had so many different things that it could be. I tried to make sort of a Venn diagram in my mind of the common denominator between all of the crashes and all the error messages that I researched, but I ended up with about 22 different error messages and error codes, and that just made it really difficult to try and figure out what the problem was. And it seemed like anything that I tried didn't change anything. Didn't make anything better, it also didn't make anything worse. But I lived with this for a while, mostly because the crashes were pretty infrequent when they first started. Obviously, when your computer crashes first, it happens. Computers crash, I didn't really think too much of it, and it went a pretty long time before it crashed again. So even the second time it crashed, I didn't really necessarily think the two were related. They had different error messages, they were pretty far apart. At that point, it was like maybe 6 weeks apart, so it really wasn't happening very frequently, and I didn't really think too much of it. But as time went on, the crashes got more and more frequent, with more and more varied error messages, and I couldn't figure it out. Unfortunately, once I realized that this was going to be a recurring problem, my warranty on my computer had already expired, so I couldn't really get anything done for free if I wanted to replace any of the hardware, and the worse and worse it got, again, I had to come to the realization that at some point I was going to need to spend money to fix it, either on whatever piece of hardware that I thought was the problem and replacing it in my current computer, or just ending up and buying a completely new computer with all new hardware. And I ended up going with the latter. I decided that I couldn't be sure that whatever part I ended up replacing was the issue because I had so many different error messages and I couldn't pinpoint what the actual problem was. I decided, screw it, it's time for an upgrade anyway, so I'm just gonna buy a completely new computer. Again, the issue of me hating spending money was a big factor here. It took me a while to actually convince myself that that was going to be the right thing, but knowing that it was going to solve all of my problems and I wasn't going to have any more stress or anxiety about my computer crashing, whether I was in the middle of something or losing progress on a project or having video files be corrupted, which happened a few times. Knowing that all of that was going to be in the past was enough to get me over that hurdle of not wanting to spend the money. And so I ended up buying a completely new desktop off of a site online. And once it got here, I was really happy for a while. And then, almost unbelievably, the same things started happening. My computer was crashing randomly, seemingly unrelated to what I was doing, and actually crashing more often than my other computer was, and not booting properly. Now, this one at least would boot after a couple minutes if I just left it there, maybe 3 or 4 minutes of just sitting on a black screen. It would eventually turn on, whereas my other computer, sometimes it would be hours of me trying to get it to turn on, not reading the boot device properly, not even recognizing there's a boot device, whatever. So it wasn't as bad, I guess, but for a brand new computer and only having it a few days and maybe a week, I was pretty annoyed. So I ended up contacting the customer service on that one, and they basically said there's nothing they can do unless I send it back to them, and then they can look for what the problem is, fix it, and then send it back to me. The problem being that where I would have to send it to was across the country, and I really couldn't go weeks without a computer. Obviously, it's sort of my job at this point to be able to use a computer, so that wasn't really an option. And I ended up just telling them that their customer service was awful, and I said I just want to return it, and I'll get a new computer somewhere else. So I ended up going and finding a computer at a local computer shop. That way I could pick it up physically, and I knew that if I did have problems with this one, at least I would be able to physically take it into the shop instead of needing to ship it across the country to get any customer service. So in both regards, I'm happy with that. And it's a better computer that has a better processor, more storage space, and essentially had the same price. So I'm really happy with that. And that is still currently the computer that I'm using, and I have not had any issues. So the computer issues saga hopefully is over. And more importantly than any of the computer issues themselves, just the thought and knowing that when I'm doing something on a computer that it might crash or might corrupt my files, might just not turn on again, it did cause me a lot of anxiety. I spend a lot of time at my computer, as you might imagine, and it's sort of like my safe space. I'm very introverted, so I like to be able to have a space that I can come home to and sort of recharge my energy. And when that space isn't safe, when I'm having constant issues in that space, it was really just like emotionally taxing on my mental health. I don't want to get too deep into it because that's not really for you guys to have to care about. I don't want to put that burden on you. But now knowing that I can come home and I actually have a computer that I can rely on, that I can do my work on, that I can play and record my videos, it just makes me feel a lot more balanced, a lot more centered. And so hopefully that will result in me being able to create more content for you guys, because without that, I found it really hard to actually want to work on my videos when my computer is the thing that was giving me that stress and that anxiety. So hopefully that has passed and I can return to regular playing, recording, editing, creating, etc. And lastly, on a lighter note, the other reason that I haven't been here for the last few weeks was just that I wasn't here. I went on a couple of vacations, 1 week trip to my family lake house and a 1 week trip to my friend's cabin, also at a lake, which I will put some clips in here. And honestly, at the time, I was really stressed out about all of the other issues I'd been having with my computer and everything. There was a return window on my first PC that I had to return that would have ended before I came back from these vacations, so I needed to make sure I got all of that done before I left. But once I was out there, it was such a nice mental reset for me. I got to hang out with my friends by the lake. I got to play some golf, as you can see. Hopefully I'll include it in the thing here. And yeah, I just had a great time, got to relax, got to have some fun, and now I'm back home at my computer that actually works and ready to make some videos. Honestly, the only negative thing I could say about either of these trips is that I had to drive down by myself to my friend's cabin, which is about a 5-hour drive, and I don't have air conditioning in my car currently, and it was like 36 degrees on the drive home, and that sucked. But, you know, worth it. So hopefully that answers your guys' questions of where I've been and what's been going on. I know I've got a lot of messages of just sort of asking if I'm okay and when the next video is going to be and whatnot. So yeah, that's what's been going on. I'm okay, and hopefully I'm so back. The only thing I have left to do now before returning to the main series videos is to learn a new video editing software. When I switch computers, it turns out that my old video editing software actually doesn't exist anymore. The company that used to make it is no longer supporting it, and therefore they don't actually have a download link on their website anymore. And although I probably could go and find it somewhere else on the internet, I think I'm just going to use this opportunity to go and learn more common editing software. I haven't really decided which one yet, but this video that you're seeing right now is going to be the first video I edit in my new software. So hopefully I will have learned how to do that. You'll see this video, and then soon enough, after I'm done recording and learning how to edit, you'll see the next main series video. So yeah, that's everything that's been going on with me. I hope this has answered all of your guys' questions about where I've been and where the videos have been. And if you don't mind, please remember to subscribe to this channel as well. I want to try and get it to 1,000 subscribers so I can get it monetized for some access to some extra features. Not because I actually want to put ads on it. In fact, I don't think I'll ever put ads on these videos, but yeah, it would be nice to get to that milestone. Anyway, if you don't mind, that'd be great. But yeah, that's all I've got, so that's going to do it for me. I will see you guys very soon.